Hi everyone, welcome to today's video, and I'm back in the comfort of my front room. So today is a sit down video, and as by the title you can see that I'm going to be talking about ultra marathons. Now if you've watched my channel before, you'll know that I train a lot for anything up to the marathon distance. So the main event that I normally train for is the London Marathon, and in between that I then do 5Ks, 10Ks and halves. However, I've signed myself up for an ultra marathon. Must have been about 9 months ago. So we'll start off with ultra marathon. What is it? Now I have looked up the definition on Wikipedia, and the definition by Wikipedia is an ultra marathon, also called the ultra distance or ultra running, is any foot race longer than the traditional marathon length of 42.195 kilometers or 26.219 miles. So basically it's a race that anything longer than a marathon. If you run a marathon and do a warm-up and cool-down, you haven't run an ultra, as I have seen some people debating this on Twitter. So leave a comment below your views on ultras and ultra marathons, as it can be quite a topical debate. Now I must admit, I've signed up for a baby ultra and I've signed up for a 35-mile race. Now the reason why I've signed up for a 35-mile race and I've not stepped up to something like a 50 like mile or 100 miler is because basically I don't want to. The reason why, being honest, the reason why I've signed up for this is because about last year I had quite a few people asking me to train them for ultra marathons. Now because I haven't done one, I don't feel like I can train someone for that. Now I can train someone in the gym to make them stronger to be able to sustain an ultra marathon, but in terms of a training plan for an ultra, I didn't feel that was in my remit. So I have signed up for one, not so that then now I can start coaching people for ultras, but more so that I can understand what an ultra marathon is, what the distance is like, how it tests you physically, mentally, and all things like that. So my training, I must admit, I've not done anything ridiculous, because my main aim or focus was for the London Marathon. This ultra is just to do it and just a personal challenge. And as well, after London, I think I've only had like 6 weeks leading up to this ultra, and we're now about 3 weeks away from it. So my training, I've had to have a bit of time off of recovery, and now I'm just trying to keep ticking over basically the mileage and trying to do some back-to-back runs, and just keeping some of the longer runs in there. So nothing crazy, because I don't want to injure myself before it, and I haven't got a lot of time leading up to it. So waffling on a little bit now. However, because I'm not experienced in ultra marathons yet, I thought I would reach out to a couple of people locally that I know that have done different races, have done various distances, and ask them for their top tips to anyone that's new doing ultra marathons or ultra distances, and just to share some of their experiences and any advice that they can give to anyone that maybe has signed up for a race, or anyone that's thinking about signing up for a race, and what they should consider beforehand. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So the first person that I asked was Mark Atkinson, who is the author of Run Like Duck. Now I've known Mark for quite a long time, well, I'd say a couple of years, because I've met him at various races and we've been a similar pace, and that's how I first met him. But Mark has achieved a lot. He's run various marathons. He has done the Grand Union Canal race, which is 145 miles, but I think you end up doing 150, and it's just crazy. He does stuff all the time. He did a 100-mile race one day, and the next day he paced the Milton Keynes Marathon. It's just insane what he does do. Forgive me if I'm wrong, I think Mark now might be part of the 100 Marathon Club. So this guy's got a bit of an experience, and I've started reading his book. I haven't quite got far into it yet. I'm going to take it on holiday with me, but he started off as a beginner and has just, it's been like self-taught, self-coached, and he's done amazing. And some of the times that he's achieved, and just how much endurance this guy has, is ridiculous. Okay, so Mark's top tips. Number one, he's put that you can run forever if you look after your feet. Now I can imagine that a lot of us that even do marathons can understand that, but I guess that running for a long period of time, your feet take a battering. So he's put, lube your feet up before, tape any known hot spots, and carry small Vaseline and plasters with you. If you get a blister or a stone in your shoe, deal with it there and then, and don't run it for 30 miles and wonder why your foot is in agony. I've had the same experience actually when we went to Kenya and did almost a marathon. At one point I felt like that my feet were on fire and I thought that I was gonna get a blister. I taped it up and luckily I was okay, I didn't catch anything. Otherwise I think I could have been in the same situation. Number 2, I like this one. In marathon training, you never try anything new, but in ultras you've got to listen to your body and eat whatever it calls for. Pineapple, pizza, crisps, whatever. You are unlikely to make it far on gels alone. So if you are thinking about an ultra, then think about other things like real food. I've spoken to people and real food seems to be what you need to look at next. Number 3, there are no toilets in the countryside. Wild poos can be an issue, so don't forget your, I won't pronounce this, but don't forget your kit. Ziploc bags with tissues or wet wipes. It's never happened to me, he said. Yeah, but I've known people hit double figures on 100-milers. Thanks, Mark. Okay, number 4, the weather can change. Carrying a long sleeve base layer in a Ziploc bag is a little extra weight, but can make the difference between finishing a race or dropping out if the temperature drops. So I'm assuming this is for races that are like 50 or 100 milers, and if you're starting very early in the morning and finishing late at night, there can be a lot of variance in the weather. And number 5, I hope that this one doesn't apply to me in a few weeks' time, but buddy up for night sections. Company and safety is great. When you've been running for 12 hours, your brain is fried and you struggle to make simple decisions or follow obvious route markers. So a lot of us that do marathons can resonate with that, you know, about actually running with people can help. And I can imagine that when you're running for a long distance, being on your own for 12 hours, that's a lot of thoughts that can go through your head. So yeah, there we are from Mark. Look after your feet. Do try stuff that's new, so give your food, just listen to your body and give whatever food that it wants. You know, you need to fuel, otherwise you will hit that wall. No toilets in the countryside, so be prepared. The weather can change, so make sure you've got some extra layers if needed, if you're doing a very long ultra. And buddy up, so try and find people to run with throughout. So thank you very much for your advice, Mark. And again, Run Like Duck is the book if you're interested. Next advice comes from a lovely lady called Pet. Now, I've run with Pet a few times, but I wouldn't say often just because she does some crazy distances, and this lady can just run. She gets up super early, she goes out with the dog, and she just is just constantly running. She's working her way up to 100 marathons, I believe, and just randomly you'll get speaking to her and she's just booked off for another one, here, there and everywhere. She just goes and does them. In terms of ultras, she's done the Race of the Stones over 2 days, which is 50 kilometers a day. She's done Race of the Kings, Race of the King in a whole day, which is 55 miles. The Winter Cross Ultra on the South Downs Way, which is 50k. And Shies and Spies 35 miler. So this is one that I'm doing in a few weeks' time. So we had a chat about it, and she did say it was quite hilly, but she said it was beautiful and the countryside was gorgeous. So her top tips. Number 1 is to check whether there is a mandatory kit list for the chosen race, and always purchase the best quality kit you can afford. I have read this, and I've spoken to people that have done like fell running before, and if you don't have what they require from you, you can't race. So check that out if you have booked a race and you think you might need a kit list. Number 2, be prepared for there to be hills and challenging terrain. Again, lots of people have said this, is to walk up the hills, run the flat and the downhills. Even if these uphills are quite early on into the race, I've been advised to walk them. You know, you need to save your energy because it's a long way, and hitting the wall too early on an ultra can cause some problems. So be prepared for the hills. And number 3, she's put enjoy. The scenery will undoubtedly be stunning, so lots of photo and selfie opportunities. The food stations are usually fab, with lots of normal food like sandwiches, cakes and sausage rolls, and the runners are all really friendly. They generally are there to enjoy as opposed to pounding out a PB. The atmosphere is very different from marathons, and I like that because sometimes we can get caught up and hooked into trying to get PBs, whereas it sounds like a lot of these ultra marathons are off-road through beautiful scenery, through the trails, and the atmosphere and the community spirit of it. It can be that everyone, I guess, on your road race, you're running fast to get a PB, whereas this is just it's a challenge, the distance. I guess there'll be people racing it, but I like that you know, really enjoy it and soak up every minute that you can. Next up, we have some great advice from my good friend Richard Bazeley, also known as Baze 187. I will link his channel below. Now, Richard, again, has done lots of marathons, but he's also done the Comrades event, which is 54 miles. And if anyone knows about that, that's quite an intense and tough race. So his top tips. Number one is don't underestimate the challenge. If you're doing a 50k, your marathon training might just about do it. But if your ultra is longer, then you really need to train for longer. So he said that for his Comrades events, he did lots of 30-mile runs. Well, he did long runs of 30 miles, not lots of them, shall I say, and probably didn't know enough of them, and said that he suffered a lot for it during the race. It is the hardest thing you'll ever do. Remember when you ran a 10k and felt tired, wondering how you'd ever manage a half, then you did a half, wondering how you'd do a full, and then when you did a full and thought you were tired. You haven't experienced tired. The ultra will test you in a way you've never been tested, so prepare, prepare, prepare. So it sounds like you need to also prepare up here for how tough it might be, but again, I'm not sure how you can try and prepare that until you're in it. But thank you, Richard, that sounds great. Don't underestimate the challenge. I think actually I know how I felt before my first fall, so I can imagine how I'm going to feel the day of the ultra. Number two, again, something that's coming up quite often, which is great. It's lovely to know that when things are coming up again and again, gels just aren't going to cut it. Comrades, up to 50 plus miles, can take up to 12 hours. It starts at 5 AM in the dark and ends at 5 PM in the dark. Ordinarily, in 12 hours, you might eat 3 meals. So not only you not eating those meals, but also you're expending thousands of calories. Overusing gels, he's put that you can have digestive issues, and that's a lot of calories to take in just from gels, which I kind of completely understand. So he said about trying real food and get used to it, eating it whilst running. So energy bars, pretzels, salty boiled new potatoes is actually a Comrade's favourite on aid stations. Practice, find out what works for you so that on race day you know what to eat. Perfect, good stuff. Number three, kit. Suss out the aid stations at your race and figure out if you're going to have to carry food or water, and if so, how you're going to carry it. So that's the biggest thing about kit really, is thinking next about a backpack or some kind of rucksack or hydration vests. Figure all this out in advance in training like you would for your marathons, and nothing is new on race day. Number four, don't be afraid to walk. I know that this is going to be a big thing. Walking an ultra is not only okay, but it might be essential to allow it to actually finish. You need to keep your heart rate low, so factor in planned walk breaks, and ideally if you can do these on any uphill sections, again, which is something that's coming out quite a lot. At the Comrades Expo, they talked about controlled walking, where you walk to a set point, i.e. the top of a hill, and then you run again, or a prolonged hill walk for so many paces, jog for so many paces. However, be wary of complacent walking. When you aimlessly walk for a long time, you could fall behind, which leads on to the next point, which is number five, know your race cut-offs. Many ultras will have cut-offs, i.e. if you don't reach a certain point by a certain time, then they won't let you proceed, and normally it's for your safety. Now, most ultras, from what I understand, will have different control points, and personally I'm going to use each control point as a way of mentally breaking down the race. So when I've got to each control point, that's one ticking them off. But what he's saying here is that there will be a time that you need to reach that cut-off point by. So if you do too much walking at the start, then you might risk yourself being out of the race. So here he's put to work out the average pace that you need to get to, like what time you need to be at each station by to successfully reach each cutoff. So that's brilliant. So going back over those quite quickly, is Rich has put, don't underestimate the challenge of what you're about to take on. Gels aren't going to cut it, so you need to find some real foods to work with. Kit, so work out what you're going to take and how you're going to transport it around. Number four, don't be afraid to walk. It's about changing your mindset. If you're used to running the full way on marathons, you need to change your mindset with that. Don't be afraid to walk. And number five, know your race cut-offs and work out the aid stations around the course. So thank you very much for that. The next person I was to ask was the lovely Ros Crawley. Now Ros, I met her as part of our running club, the Redway Runners. She is a parkrun director, and last year she did the full, I think it's all last year, I'm very sorry if it's wrong, Ros, but she done the full Threshold series, which is Race to the Tower, Race to the Kings and Race to the Stones. I know that she did them with a couple of friends, and I spoke to her afterwards and caught up with her, and she, from what I remember, she just said she absolutely loved them. And I think last year we had some quite good weather, so I think that made the whole experience even better. So her tips. Now, I'm going to take this one, read it out, and then I'll give my, I'll follow this up. So number 1 is buy and wear trail shoes to protect your feet. Many people try to wear normal trainers as they think they'll be more comfortable and familiar shoes than new ones. This is false. You need to protect your soles from the hard ground over many hours, so get trails. Now, doing all of these events are, you know, quite serious big events that she's done with the Threshold ones. However, after I put out a tweet about a week ago asking about my ultra, and lots of people have said that you'll be okay with road shoes. So I personally am going to go with road shoes. However, I think this is geared for people that might be doing real off-road events and where you'll be on your feet for a long time. I know that trail shoes don't suit everyone, but that is something to consider if you're doing an ultra. Do you need to be wearing road shoes, or do you need to be investing in some trail shoes? Number 2, carry light warm clothes too. So after the sun goes down and you have been out for more than 6 hours, you'll get chilly. Again, something which has been said before, so you need to consider other things that aren't just your race kit that you're currently wearing. With a marathon, you just wear your kit. With this, you need to think about other things that you're going to potentially need later on in the day. Number 3, hydrate and eat. The odd gel and shot block is not enough to replace the 5,000 plus calories you will use, so eat and drink at every food station to keep up your calorie intake. Again, this is great that same information is being reiterated by many people. I have spoken to people that have done ultras before, and they have loved the aid stations. Like, sometimes one of the first people that I spoke to about ultra marathons, and this was many years ago, and I was like, you're crazy, why would you ever want to do that? And they described it as a walking picnic. So I'm going to look forward to taking advantage of that, I must admit. Number 4, again, the same point. This is fantastic. Run the flats and the downhills and walk the inclines. Save your legs for the distance. Trail running is not about time for most of us, but about finishing after an amazing day out with your friends in the most gorgeous countryside imaginable. Number 5, this is a good one. Rest up before you take on a 50 to 100k. You'll need a lot of reserves in the tank, and as long as you're marathon fit and you can run on tired legs, you will be able to do it. So I'm going to ensure that in the days leading up to it, I'm taking as much rest as possible, putting my feet up, not doing lots of walking. So yeah, really top tip is just making sure that before it, you're rested and your legs are ready to go. Last but not least is the unbelievable Jen Sangster. Jen I met on one of my first club runs with the Red Ray Runners, which was back in 2014 now, and I probably didn't realise that I was talking to like running royalty. This lady is phenomenal. Like, the list right here of the amount of ultras she's done is insane, and I know that she has like podiumed some of these as well. And she's been really modest, and she's not put anything that she's won. If I was to have won any of those or got on the podium, that would be in the list right now. But that shows how humble she really is. Now, she has done the Monster Ultra 3 times. I don't know what that one is, I'm afraid. She's done the Green Sands Ridge Relay 4 times, which is a local event, and I know I think she won last year or the year before. I remember that on Facebook. Lakes in a Day. She's done Across Wales Walk, which is 50, Race the Stones 62. She's done a Cakeathon 30 miles. She's done the South Downs Way 50, the South Downs Way 100, and next up she's got the Grand Union Canal Run 145 miles. And she will be fantastic. I know she will be. She's been training so hard for this, and she is just phenomenal. Like, you can just, it's like clockwork. You just literally, like, I'm sure her husband Andy must just like spin her up and then just like push her out the door, and then she just goes and can go at the same pace. It's just insane. Okay, anyway, so first things first, she's put basics. Don't compare it to running a marathon, and don't underestimate the training. So I feel like already I'm failing. You will need to run. You will need to run slower. Learn how to eat solid food whilst on the move, and carry more weight, i.e. your kit in a pack. So you'll need to practice all of this for 8 to 10 weeks before the race by doing 2 long runs back to back. Normally at the weekend. Now, I've seen this a lot from Jen. Jen will go out and do sometimes a long run on the Saturday, include park run, and then go out and do another run on the Sunday. Now here, yeah, this is where this lady, it's just done amazing. So normally a 20 miler one day followed by a 30 miler the next. I've not even done 30 miles before, so doing those back to back is just flipping incredible. This teaches you lots and helps you adapt both your body and your mind. The latter is key, i.e. the mind. So the mental side of it is obviously quite a tough part of ultra. Number 2, eating. I like that. Practice, practice, practice. Everyone is different. So Jen's put here that she loves cake and fresh fruit if it's available at the checkpoints, but will always carry flapjack, malt bread, homemade, she's put. I do love a malt loaf. Homemade peanut butter cookies and Mars bars if it's not too hot. Basically it will melt. She's put others find nuts, dried fruit, crisps and sandwiches are good. Again, you just need to find out what works for you and your tummy. Homemade is best when you can, as it tastes so much better when running. And remember to eat something every half an hour or so. You'll find your fuel levels yourself. Drink wise, she goes with plain old water and takes salt tablets, but will take coffee and Coke if it's on offer at the checkpoints. Others prefer Tailwind or similar, but that can upset your tummy again, so practice. So that's really useful, Jen, thank you. You know, get your bake on, sounds like, if you can make homemade flapjacks and whatnot. That sounds amazing, some of that stuff that she's taking, but obviously again it's with the nuts and the dried fruit and the crisps, it's the salts and the sugar that people are looking for there to replace. Number 3, don't ever think of the whole run. If you're thinking I've only done 20 miles and you've got 30 to go, you'll risk losing drive and enthusiasm if you're getting tired. Just think of the next checkpoint. The next point you'll see a supporter, or the next hill you're aiming to climb. The miles tick off so much more quickly and you're more likely to enjoy being in that moment rather than dreading what you think is coming. And when it hurts, tell yourself it's only a blip. You will go through peaks and troughs all the way through. I'll tell myself I'll give it 10 minutes. I always feel better by then, and it's a great tip I've shared with many. I can resonate that even with marathons, and I always find that when you're in a dark place in a race, even if it's on a 5k, I can have it like 1 minute I can feel great and the next minute I feel bad. So if you are feeling not that great, then just remember you're going to come out on the other side at some point. And again, I love the fact about breaking it down, like I said before, about breaking it down to the next checkpoint. Keep thinking like that. And that's how I broke down the marathons. I broke it down into sort of like 5-mile chunks, and it just helped each bit tick off and seem so much easier. So there we are. Number 1, basics. Don't compare it to running a marathon. Make sure you do some long runs back to back on the weekend, especially if you're, and I have read up about that, is that if you are doing serious distance, then it's not just about doing one long run like you do a marathon. Back to back runs are going to help you. Doing one huge long run is probably going to more likely injure yourself than if you did 2 shorter, they are shorter, longer runs back to back. Number 2, the eating, the fun part, making sure that you're practicing beforehand what works for you. And here she's not mentioned anything about gels or shot blocks, so real food. And number 3, about focus, breaking up the race, and mentally if you're struggling, you are going to come out on the other side of it. So thank you very much, Jen, that's some fabulous advice.